Okay. Dreaming of a white Christmas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Keeping Runners on the Road. My name is Dr. Cameron Garber, and I am here with Mark Humbert. We are from Body Smart, and we love to bring you Keeping Runners on the Road every week. We got a great topic this week, and it's all about foot strength. So we love to help keep runners on the road here at Body Smart. It's our main goal. We want to keep people healthy, fit, and so that they can keep on moving and doing the things they love to do. So foot strength is such a huge part of that, because if our feet aren't strong, then we've really got a poor foundation that we're working from, right? So core, really, really important, right? Keep our core strong, and it helps make our limbs move the way we want it to and everything. But if our foundation is too weak and can't support our body weight, we're in a world of hurt.
Definitely. And I think one of the things, especially with the foot that's unique, is that it has to play dual roles, right?
Yeah.
We need it to be rigid at certain times, right? When we hit heel strike, when we're going off, right? To form that rigid lever system. But then we also need it to be dynamic and mobile so that we can adapt to the different surfaces that we're on and keep from tripping up, keep from falling, right?
Right.
Like it definitely has to handle a lot of load, and so
so much.
like
Our
you said,
entire body weight.
Yeah, like that, and on the single leg, right? We always talk about how running is really just a series of single leg hops, and so each foot is having to take that full load of the body weight each step, and so I love how you said it, right? We've got to have that strong foot core as a foundation to build off of, or we really kind of set ourselves up for failure in many ways.
Yeah, and so that concept of single leg hops, thousands and thousands of repetitions.
So many.
of single leg hops with running. And so that's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. With taking that many steps, we got to make sure that there's enough resilience built into the foot, right? That it has enough ability to kind of bear that load, not only for shock absorption, but also propulsion. And so much of what launches us forward is actually done in the lower leg. What keeps us moving during running all happens from the knee down.
Yeah.
Not all, but a lot of it, a high percentage of it. And so much of our running comes from calf and foot that it really is important to make sure that we have a solid, stable foot that can do both propulsion as well as shock absorption. So let's talk more about the foot core, right? That solid foundation that we're trying to work from. There's two sets of muscles in the foot. So explain a little bit more about the intrinsics and extrinsics of the foot.
So just like it sounds right, extrinsic outside. So those are the muscles that control movements in the foot, but that the tendons and the actual muscle belly are located outside of the foot.
So our calf muscles and things like that, right?
Exactly,
exactly. The extrinsics are mostly right up here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the intrinsics, right? Those are the ones that are actually in the foot. In our foot, we have kind of 4 different layers of those intrinsics, and they do a ton, especially to keep that arch supported, right?
Right.
And that is super necessary because that's the biggest part that's kind of changing through that movement, right? There's times that it needs to flatten. There's times that it needs to be more holding out that arch, more of that domed.
Mm-hmm.
And so those muscles get run through a lot of work. And so we want them to be well endurance adapted because, like we said, thousands of repetitions as we're going through a run.
Yeah.
And we can kind of think of 2 different roles, right? This idea of local stabilizers versus global movers. And our intrinsic really act as those local stabilizers, right? That foundation to build on with that strong, it's going to keep things solid. And then the extrinsics, are going to be those global movers, right? That the calf really propels us forward.
Yep.
We've talked about before, it's about, 75%, I think, of in running. Or no.
A little, like
60
some odd percent, yeah.
But it makes up a lot of what's moving us forward in running. And so we need both of those systems to work together, right? Local stabilization, global movers, to accomplish our goal of moving forward in an effective and a stable manner.
Right, and so it's so much load on the foot. We really have to make sure that those muscles are strong. One kind of telltale sign, if you've ever walked on the beach in sand and your feet get kind of achy or crampy feeling, then your feet probably aren't strong enough. And so that's a pretty good indicator that you need to strengthen your feet muscles. If you stand on one leg in the sand and your feet get tired, or just stand on one leg on the ground and you feel like your arch or your feet muscles are kind of cramping or getting tired, you probably need to really strengthen those foot muscles. And so those are some at-home tests you can do. Like next time you're on the sand, try to walk barefoot in the sand. And if your muscles feel tired in your feet, you've got to strengthen those up.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say the sand, right? Because we're just talking about what we've seen in people that live more by the seaside, right? That have those beaches tend to have a much lower rate of lower foot and ankle injuries, right? Like significantly lower than the general population.
Isn't that interesting that living near the beach, so essentially going barefoot more.
Yes.
Right? That's a kicker. Going barefoot more strengthens those feet better. And so that's one of the general recommendations is just taking shoes and socks off and doing exercises and spending some time barefoot really will help increase the strength. And it really helps increase your proprioceptive sense, so your ability to have your feet make corrections based on what it's sensing. So it notices kind of changes in the terrain, changes in the softness of the ground, and all those types of things a little bit better so that it can adapt and adjust and correctly either dome or flatten out depending on how it needs to, and those muscles can better control the motion of the foot. So you have motion in multiple planes in the foot, right? So you've kind of got a twisting motion in the foot as well as a forward, backward, kind of almost like a wave. There's certain layers of bones in the foot that cause different joints throughout the foot. So it really is a very dynamic and adaptable structure. But because of that, those muscles have to really work hard at controlling all of that. And going barefoot just allows you more response from the ground. That's one of the reasons why I personally like a flatter, more flexible shoe so that your foot can adapt to those surfaces better and less cushion. In fact, they've shown that you actually have greater forces through your foot, so greater peak impact forces when we wear a more cushioned shoe. And so there's a time and a place for it, but I would say it would be better if all runners were working toward a stronger foot and maybe needing less support because they're able to support themselves better with their foot musculature. Like any type of bracing that we do, shoulder slings, knee braces, back braces, they tend to weaken the muscles that are being supported because the muscles no longer have to do the job of some of that baseline support anymore. And so we become weaker and weaker. And you could make that same argument with the shoe that the more support you have in the arch or, in some of the planes of motion, are you just robbing the foot of the ability to maintain that strength on its own? And you will eventually need more and more bracing and more supporting with that. So, that's my bias, and it's pretty well backed up in many other body regions. We're still working on building up a good body of evidence in the foot for that same concept. But they have shown that, the shoes that have the highest correlation of injury, regardless of foot type, is actually a more supportive, so a motion control shoe actually has the highest rates of injury for every single foot type. So keeping the feet strong is really going to help you more than getting in a supportive shoe will long term. So the supportive shoe, there's again a time and a place for that. If short term or right before a race, if you're like, oh man, my foot's hurting and that shoe helps me control it, but you want to wean off of that as soon as you can. That shouldn't be a life sentence. Get that foot strength up and wean back to more of a dynamic shoe that's a little more flexible and allows your foot to do its job a little better.
Absolutely. I think one more important point to put in there, right, is that like we're always giving something up, right? Like in the case of a more supportive shoe, like you said, we're maybe not getting as much muscle support, which means that some of that support's going to have to come from somewhere, right? Like we're still putting loads through our body that tends to go back and fall back on more of the passive elements of our body, right?
Right.
So especially in the foot, we look at Achilles, we look at plantar fascia, right? If the muscles aren't supporting that arch, if they aren't allowing that dynamic movement, if they don't have the endurance to resist that, then a lot of that ends up going into some of those passive elements, and we get things like plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendinopathy,
bone stress injuries.
Right?
Yep.
And those become much hard, like they take a while to rehab.
Yeah.
come back from. So it's much better to take that time to go into specific foot strengthening, right? Making sure we have that really strong core so that we don't have to take more time on the other side to rehab what we could have prevented in the first place.
Yep. And so that huge recommendation from us, as far as keeping runners on the road, big thing. Keep that foot musculature strong. If you're spending time post-run on recovery things, so foam rolling, stretching, icing, things like that, honestly, in terms of bang for your buck, where you're going to get way more value is actually strengthening. It's going to do more to loosen and recover than any of that other stuff, icing, foam rolling, theragunning, or any, massage gun. Sorry to call out one brand. Any massage gunning. It's not going to give you the same amount of benefit as strengthening will. So if you're limited on time and can't do both, I would say focus more on strengthening, specific foot strengthening, hip strengthening, and the muscles surrounding the knee, so hamstring, quad, all that stuff. Making sure that you're keeping everything from the core down, essentially strong and fit and able to bear the amount of load. So important, and more important than bracing it, and more important than recovery type things don't seem to give you as much bang for your buck. Now, one question I hear with this all the time is, what about so all the shoe brands are coming out with these ultra, responsive foam, carbon fiber shoes. What about that? So people are running faster with those types of shoes. So how can you say that foot strength is so important if these ultra cushioned, ultra responsive foam, carbon fiber shoes, I would say it's great for race day. Not many athletes are training in that type of a shoe. And if they did, you talk to most runners that run in those shoes, and they're not great on their feet. They're pretty sore afterwards, and they're kind of beat up in their feet because they are kind of doing some of the foot's job for it. So you can make the argument that for race day, that gives you the bigger advantage, so go for it. And I'm okay with that for one single race. But for the majority, the bulk of your training, you definitely don't want to train that way for the majority of your runs. And so the more you can be in a shoe that allows your foot to do its job and for those muscles to stay strong, from an injury standpoint, you're going to have a lot lower risk of injury. But for speed work days and for race day, that's totally fine to wear a shoe that's a fast shoe and that optimizes some of the mechanics for speed. I'm totally fine with that. So I always say make sure you're wearing the appropriate shoe for the appropriate event. You would definitely wear a different shoe for your average workout day or for a long, slow, steady day. You're going to change up the type of shoe that you're going to wear. And race day, yeah, you want a shoe that's really fast. And that's fine to wear one of those carbon fiber shoes for that. But you're not going to spend a lot of your mileage there. So anyway, hopefully that answers that question or your concern if that was one of your concerns. Definitely, if you have any other questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to us. We, again, love to help keep runners on the road, so all questions are welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. Like, subscribe, follow, all of those good things so you can get the rest of our episodes. We'd love to see you on the next one. Thanks so much, and we'll see you later. How do I forget, within seconds? What's the topic again?
It's like walking through a door.
But then once I get rolling, it's sorry, just diarrhea mouth for the last 20 minutes. Good luck listening to that.